damn it, dude, your mom and dad want you to come home.
So they can fill my head with more Disney lies about how perfect the world is? I don't think so.
Wow, Disney gets us!
Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my first amendment rights vlog style. If there's anything you guys know about me, it's that I'm a man who loves his nostalgia. And since this is a primarily music-focused channel, combining music with nostalgia basically gets you Disney. And I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I love Disney movies. They've made up some of my earliest childhood memories. No matter who you are, Disney was a part of your life, growth, and development to at least some degree. And to this day, as an adult, much of these movies are still favorites of mine that I have such a blast revisiting like the nostalgic dork that I am. But this isn't about just the movies. Like I said, music is the primary focus of my channel, and a big part of what makes Disney movies so memorable and stand out is the songs. The composition, the catchiness, the cool visuals, the creativity in the lyrics. The likes of Alan Menken, the late Howard Ashman, Tim Rice, and more never miss a beat. Not only do these songs make for some of the best scenes and key moments in their respective films, but some of my earliest musical memories are thanks to the songs from these movies. This video is partially inspired by the video Become the Night made a little while back, as well as my general adoration for Shameless Productions and the Disney rankings he's done. Today, I'm going to share with you my all-time favorite Disney songs. Let me just get a few rules for this list out of the way first. Number one, I'm only going to be including songs from Walt Disney Animation Studios' theatrical releases. There's not going to be anything from live-action films, nothing from Pixar, certainly nothing from the direct-to-video sequels, most of which I haven't even seen, nor do I have any interest in seeing anyway, and nothing from Disney Toon Studios or anything like that. So that means as much as these songs are total jams, I'm not going to be featuring Stand Out or Eye to Eye from Goofy Movie. Sorry, Shades from last year. Number two, the songs have to be sung by a character in the movie. So as much as I really enjoy these songs, as well as the artist who made them, I won't be featuring any of Phil Collins' Tarzan songs. If you want to treat this as me avenging South Park for You'll Be in My Heart beating Blame Canada from the South Park movie in the Oscar for Best Original Song, which South Park themselves took the piss out of in one of my favorite episodes of the show, you're free to interpret it as such. Number three, I won't be featuring any more than 2 songs from a particular movie. I already had to make a good bit of cuts for this list, even after I decided to turn this from a top 15 into a top 20, but when I was going through the list of Disney films and picking out my favorite songs from the ones I've seen, I felt really bad cutting out a particular song from a given movie that I also really enjoyed, just for the sake of only having 1 song per film. It just didn't feel right. So I decided to allow for some leeway and feature that other song as well. Anything else you'll likely be seeing in the honorable mentions. And with that in mind, number 4, yes, this list will primarily feature songs from the Disney Renaissance. What can I say? Those have always been the films I considered to be the best of Disney, so of course there's going to be a bit of a bias in that direction. Does this mean I dislike the songs from before or after that period, or indeed the films those songs come from?
No.
Come on, that's silly. The Disney Renaissance songs just hold up with me a lot better. This doesn't mean that all of the songs on this list are going to be from the 89 to 99 period, but a lot will be. So let's begin. Number 20. We'll start this out with a song from a movie that I don't think gets nearly the love it deserves. Yeah, the Renaissance films are legendary, and a good bit of the stuff that came after is pretty great too, but the pre-Renaissance movies tend to get overlooked a lot. The Aristocats, which I still sometimes mix up with the instrumental prog band The Aristocrats, was a movie I really liked as a kid. I found a lot of the characters really funny, that chase scene with the dogs is hilarious as shit, and there's some pretty snazzy songs as well. Do check the movie out if you haven't seen it. The movie revolves around a pampered cat named Duchess and her kittens, Marie, Toulouse, and Berlioz, being listed in their owner's will to inherit her fortune, and her greedy butler Edgar disposing of them so that he can make the bank. When they wake up after being drugged, the first thing they see is an orange cat strutting in singing all Sinatra style. His name?
Abraham DeLacy, Giuseppe Casey, Thomas O'Malley.
And you can tell he's making a great impression. I always thought it was really cute that Toulouse, the other orange cat, took the strongest liking to him out of all the kittens. O'Malley's singing is so smooth, and I love the big band horns in between the lines. And throughout this little introduction, he presents himself like he really knows what's up, kind of like another song later on this list. And since he doesn't have an owner, unlike Duchess and the kittens, the world's basically his oyster, and he just does as he pleases. I don't really have too much to say about this song, I just really like the big band style here. Deep voices like O'Malley's really complement it well, almost like there's a reason guys like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin got so big in their time. This song also sets the tone musically for the rest of the film, and we'll see how later on. Number 19. How about something from Disney's last hurrah with 2D animated musical films, The Princess and the Frog? I should tell you, I'm still kinda new to this movie, but one thing I can tell you is that although most people think of Princess and the Frog as the movie that gave us the first black Disney princess with Tiana, which is obviously no small feat, and I'm not here to downplay that, my favorite thing about this movie was always the music. Another thing about the movie that always stood out to me was this villain song, Friends on the Other Side. The fairy tale Princess and the Frog was always kinda simplistic sounding. Princess turned into a frog, princess kisses him, and he turns back into a prince. Bam! But Disney's adaptation gives that simple concept a really interesting twist. So upon their arrival in New Orleans, the smooth-talking, fun-loving Prince Naveen and his fat, monkey-faced butler Lawrence meet a voodoo doctor tarot reader named Dr. Facilier, who's about to enact a little plan that I'll get to in a bit, using his cross-dimensional Friends on the Other Side. All you need to know right now is that this guy knows voodoo magic and you don't want to fuck with him. I really like the swing feel here. There's a dark southern vibe to this swing, and the singing is really smooth and dripping with personality. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the section when Facilier reads the terrace of both Naveen and Lawrence since it's kinda slower, but the lyricism is pretty cool and I dig the magic he does with the cards. It's especially neat when he turns his attention to Lawrence and makes a flip book out of his cards, and you can tell what's being said to him is really sinking in, and thus is how he's eventually sucked into being Facilier's pawn, which I'll explain in a little bit. The part after is the coolest part of the song. Not only does the fast tempo come back, but we get some insane visuals. We get all these bright colors, big shadows, and voodoo ornaments coming to life, and snakes tie up Naveen for Facilier to prick his finger with a medallion that absorbs his DNA and turns Naveen into, of course, a frog. And Facilier himself looks really demonic now, and eerily similar to the poison poster I have in my room. While this clearly isn't my favorite Disney villain song, I'd say it has the coolest visuals that come readily to mind when I think of Dr. Facilier. To get you up to speed, what the medallion containing Naveen's DNA does is allow fat-ass Larry to take his form, and he does this with the intent of weaseling his way into marriage with the spoiled and rich Charlotte, or Lottie, who's hellbent on marrying into royalty. So he not only gets to stick it to Naveen for working him silly, but he also gets a sweet payday for helping Facilier to eventually voodoo kill Charlotte's rich daddy and getting the money too, while that pampered bastard's now a fucking frog. Hopefully there's no chemicals in the water to turn him gay, am I right?
We're breaking the conditioning! Ah!
Like I said, this is a really interesting way to adapt a comparatively simple fairy tale. It's a unique setup for how the Frog Prince became a frog, and it's done during such an intense and dark song. There's more to talk about with Princess and the Frog coming later, but for now, let's move on. Number 18. You guys can probably tell that I really like the jazzy stuff, and the Jungle Book certainly has a few of them. The song that's the most recognized from the movie is of course Bare Necessities, the song Baloo the Bear sings when he takes Mowgli under his wing so he won't have to go to the human village, even if it means he'll be protected from the wrath of the man-eating tiger, Shere Khan, or even getting hypnotized and eaten by Kaa the Snake, who, fun fact, has the same voice actor as Winnie the Pooh, which I even picked up on as a kid. And while Bare Necessities is a nice little tune, we all know that I Want to Be Like You is superior. This is a really fun jazzy song. It doesn't bop as hard as some of the other songs on this list, but I always enjoyed all the monkeys singing and dancing as King Louie, voiced by Louie Prima, get it, expresses his desire for Mowgli to teach him to make fire, since, you know, humans did evolve from apes after all. What for? I don't know. But you can kind of tell something's up with him, since he's doing a little bribery tactic to seduce Mowgli into staying with him and all his bananas that even the amazing atheist would be enticed by. Wow, imagine making a Bananagate reference in 2022.
Banana was my idea.
The thing that really makes this song is, of course, the scatting. No, not that kind, you perverts. It adds so much personality to an already swinging song. That smaller monkey is kind of annoying with trying to upstage King Louie, but that fluttery whistle he does always sounded cool to me. There's also a solid Louis Armstrong-inspired, get it, trumpet solo that plays while Baloo and Mowgli's panther guardian, Bagheera, plan on how they're gonna get Mowgli out of there. And that plan involves Baloo disguising himself as a gorilla and doing a scat battle with King Louie that's fun as shit. This is one of those songs that you wouldn't mind going on just a little longer with how enjoyable of a time this is. Before we move on, another fun fact about the Jungle Book is that those 4 vultures were originally intended to be voiced by the Beatles, hence those bowl cuts. Imagine how cool that would have been. Number 17. Picking up where we left off in the Thomas O'Malley segment, since it's established that he knows his way around the place, he offers to help the cats return home. During their voyage, O'Malley introduces the cats to his homie Scat Cat and his band featuring a guitarist, bassist, accordionist, and a drummer/pianist that's infamous for this.
Shanghai, Hong Kong, ik fu young. Fortune cookie always wrong.
O'Malley's introduction is a cool song with some smooth singing, but Everybody Wants to Be a Cat knocks it out of the park. Cats are one thing, but a cat knows where it's at. The song starts out pretty jaunty and chill, but then when it gets into double time,
Oh boy, fellas, let's rock the joint. Groove it, cats.
it makes for the best case as to why jazz is the superior form of music. This is such a bop, man. The piano adds some nice color, and the trumpet really steals the show. And the madness is illustrated by the changes in tint throughout the break. There's a moment where Duchess plays a harp and dials everything back to a romantic vibe while the bright coloring stays intact, but I like that it doesn't overstay its welcome and allows the music to kick back up again before the cats just destroy the building and then leave, taking their party into the streets. I wonder what people's reaction to that would be like. Throughout the song, we can see the impression the band is making on the kids. From Marie singing along with O'Malley and Scat Cat, to Berlioz playing that cool pentatonic lick on the piano, to Scat Cat inviting him to blow his trumpet. Just like I said about I Wanna Be Like You, this song is so much fun, I almost want it to go on even longer. Fast swing like this gets me legitimately excited and bopping my head like a regular in a jazz club. As much as Aristocats doesn't get mentioned a lot in Disney discussions, if there's any reason to check the movie out, it's this song, and that chase scene I mentioned earlier. It is without a doubt the highlight of the film, and it makes for a damn good time. Number 16. Like I said back in the Friends on the Other Side segment, my favorite aspect of Princess and the Frog is the music, and to me, no song in the movie exemplifies this better than When We're Human, a vast improvement over Human Again from Beauty and the Beast, even if it is from the better overall movie. Friends on the Other Side might have had much of this going for it, but pretty much all the other songs in the movie have this rich New Orleans jazz instrumentation, and it is awesome. It gives me some fond memories of playing jazz band in high school, and that's kinda aided by the fact that it came out during my sophomore year. So after Naveen was turned into a frog thanks to the voodoo magic from earlier, he meets Tiana and assumes she's a princess based on her attire, so she can kiss him and he'll turn back into a prince just like the story. But since she isn't a princess, yet, she ends up turning into a frog as well. Because I guess that's how it works. And after escaping the party, they eventually meet a trumpet-playing alligator named Louis. What is it with these animals playing trumpet and being named Louis? We get it already. When he learns that Tiana and Naveen were turned into frogs through voodoo, Louis tells them of a lady named Mama Odie, who also does voodoo, and helps them make their way over after he's told he could potentially be turned human too, so he can play in a jazz band like a normal person. And thus the song starts, where all three characters sing about all they're wanting to do once they're human. We know Louis wants to play jazz in a band, and Naveen wants to resume his lavish lifestyle, even if he's being kinda reckless with his money. And Tiana? She wants to open a restaurant, a dream of hers since childhood that she's worked tirelessly to one day achieve. This is nice, but this song's on the list for the simple fact that it swings hard. Don't get me started on how badass that trumpet solo is. Again, songs like this make a strong case for jazz being the superior style. It takes the coolness of I Wanna Be Like You and Everybody Wants to Be a Cat and comes out with some really fun swing. This is why Princess and the Frog really stands out artistically. It's not just a 2D animated musical film akin to the Renaissance films we all love, and it's not just a movie that features the first Black Disney princess, but it's got its own musical flair that I don't think the film gets nearly enough credit for. And When We're Human is the song that I believe does the best job at bringing it out, and that's why it's my favorite from the movie. Number 15. Gaston, Gaston, Gaston. I love this man. I'm not supposed to, but I do. I wouldn't call him my favorite Disney villain by any means, but I genuinely love every moment he's on screen. Just seeing this entitled man-child who's so full of himself was always really entertaining to me, and his titular song pretty much encapsulates all of that. So Gaston had just gotten rejected by Belle in probably the most embarrassing manner imaginable. But I mean, I can't say he didn't have it coming, considering he thought he could just waltz in and ask Belle to marry him on the day of the wedding, like she'd just give an automatic yes. I'm sorry, even if you are the handsomest man in town and a decorated hunter and all that, that doesn't mean you don't still have to put work into a relationship before you can get to a point where marriage is even being entertained. I don't know what the hell else you're expecting. Anyway, he's at the tavern upset at all that had happened, completely baffled that any woman would turn him down. I mean, come on, that never happens. Look at him. If he walks up to you and says, hey, guess what, you're marrying me, you just say, okay, and have the most passionate marriage you could ask for. No one says no to Gaston. Until now, I guess. And as any good friend would do when their bro needs cheering up, his sidekick LeFou leads all the patrons in singing a 3-4 bar song about how great Gaston is. All the women want to be with him, all the men want to be him. He's strong, he's tough, he's handsome, he's talented, he's a great hunter, he's fucking Gaston. No one can compete, why even try? There's not really much to the song other than that, but it's so goddamn funny, I can't help but enjoy myself whenever I get to this part of the movie. I love how prideful Gaston is whenever he sings, especially when he brags about how he ate 4 dozen eggs as a lad.
When
I was a lad, I ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me get large. But now that I've grown, I eat 5 dozen eggs and I'm dying of salmonella.
Just saying. I love how goofy LeFou is and just how rowdy the vibe is at the tavern. It reminds me a little of that Simpsons episode that begins with Otto getting married and he hires a Poison tribute band to play and his fiancée makes him choose between his music and her. Bitch move. And he rides away on the bus with the band playing nothing but a good time. Like, yeah, you might not have gotten the girl, but that doesn't mean you can't take the edge off and party a little with the bros. And that's basically what Gaston does at the tavern. Gaston the song is a lot sillier compared to other villain songs, and it kind of makes Gaston the character look tame compared to the likes of Ursula, Jafar, Frollo, Scar, and even Hades, but this is a different kind of awesome. Compared to the other villain songs I have on this list, this one is probably the most fun. I even once wrote a parody of this song about my friend Thrash Metal Guru, aka Gaston. Unfortunately, I can't seem to find the Word document containing the lyrics, or else I'd probably sing some of it to you. I really don't know what else to say here. This song is such a great time and a real standout moment in Beauty and the Beast. I'd argue this is actually my favorite song from the movie, considering the genuine entertainment I get from how much of a self-centered asshole Gaston is and everyone around him enabling him. But as a song, it's held back a little by one other song that we'll get to in a bit. Number 14. The song The Simpsons parodied with the iconic See My Vest.
Na 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 na.
Like I said a little bit ago, I'd be lying if I said I didn't like Gaston better personally, but Be Our Guest is the real deal. Out of all the songs in Beauty and the Beast, this one's the real showstopper. Much like how Belle introduces us to the environment Belle comes from, her daily routines, and how the town perceives her, Be Our Guest introduces us to the cast of characters in this new environment Belle threw herself into for the sake of saving her father's life. Initially, she's downright miserable. She's still dealing with the fact that she'll probably never see her father again, and on top of that, the Beast is being needlessly cruel, even going as far as to say,
Go ahead and starve!
So a song like this is a breath of fresh air, not just for Belle, but also for us after all we've seen so far from the Beast's castle. It's one thing to get to eat a delicious meal after being told to go and starve because you won't join someone for dinner, but here we get a real show with some delightful Broadway flair. There's great lighting and coloring, there's really creative choreography with all the dishes, and Lumiere is a very charismatic leader of this production. Not to mention, when the light dims and he and Cogsworth share the spotlight, he laments about how long it's been since all of them got to serve anyone. With the curse placed on the Beast that turned him into a beast and all the other folks in the castle into various appliances, they're basically, well, servants that haven't had much in the way of activity for a long time. The song as a whole is damn catchy, but when it gets to Mrs. Potts' part is where things really get interesting. I love when the song speeds up in a way that really makes you want to groove. Then there's a ritardando that still retains that energy that leads to a gradual speed up, all building up to such a great cadence. There's just so much to love about Be Our Guest, it only makes sense to have it a little bit higher on this list, even if it might not exactly be my favorite in the movie, especially since the movie's tone really changes after the song, with Belle feeling more comfortable around the gang and helping her to see that being in this castle might not be so bad, especially with what's in store for the relationship between her and the Beast later. There are plenty of other great songs from Beauty and the Beast, and while Gaston is an entertaining, lighthearted villain song, Be Our Guest is basically in a higher class with how much of a banger it is. Number 13. This has always been one of my favorites from The Little Mermaid that I don't think gets talked about nearly as much as the likes of Part of Your World or Under the Sea. Both are good, but there's always been something about Kiss the Girl that pushed it over the edge with me. Maybe it's the atmosphere and the scenery, maybe it's how much the plot really hinges on this moment in the film, who knows? So at this point in the movie, Ariel's made her transition from mermaid to human and got the attention of Eric. So far, she's been able to make a good impression on him. I mean, because, come on, she's great to look at and isn't annoying him by talking about her stupid woman bullshit, am I right, fellas? All joking aside, she doesn't have her voice, seeing as how that was her payment for Ursula to perform her transformation spell. More on that later. And in order for her to remain a human and get her voice back, she needs the guy to kiss her. You can tell that Eric feels like something is missing with this lack of a voice on Ariel's end. He doesn't even know her name. So that's why this kiss is super important and he needs to just do it! The boat ride they're on is nice enough, but when the song kicks in and the fish, birds, and fireflies create this beautiful scenery, it's like, holy shit, how else are you supposed to feel? My heart rate would be through the roof if I were in a setting like this. But moreover from that, the music is very relaxing. It's not too schmaltzy and it's not too over the top, making for a truly unique experience. What else could you expect from a crab that serves as the court composer for King Goddamn Triton? Speaking of which, I like the way Sebastian's voice fits with the music. He's very subdued and really pushing for that romantic vibe in his delivery. His Jamaican accent isn't as overbearing as it kind of sounds in Under the Sea. I also like how he's basically serving as the voice in Eric's head, describing everything about the situation, from how the scenery looks to what he's thinking about the girl sitting across from him in the boat. He knows there isn't a more perfect moment to make a move.
What better place than here? What better time than now?
So it's not just Sebastian telling him straight up to go for it, but he knows that's what he wants as well. And I also love the part where he's trying to figure out her name and Sebastian whispers in his ear,
Ariel. Her name is Ariel.
Everything just sounds so nice. That moment where the two of them look amorously at each other always looks great, and you're anticipating that big moment to come as the song climaxes. But you really wish those two eels didn't have to fuck it up. Like, I don't care if the two of you are named after a really good 80s thrash metal band, go fuck yourselves. But yeah, Kiss the Girl is a nice time, and in addition to what the song represents in terms of plot development, it's for sure one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. Number 12. I know it seems like I'm committing blasphemy by putting the song as low as I am on the list, considering how Hellfire is commonly regarded as the greatest villain song of all time. It's just never been a song that's clicked with me as well as other Disney songs, including another song from Hunchback of Notre Dame that we'll get to later. Don't get me wrong, this is a villain song's villain song. It's great, and for sure one of the most iconic villain songs of all time, so it definitely deserves a spot on this list. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was actually a movie that I was pretty late on watching for the first time. I'm not sure why that was. Maybe it's because I grew up in a Jewish household and my parents didn't like the idea of me watching a movie with themes and depictions of Christianity, or maybe it's because of how mature the movie gets. That's the best word I can use to describe Hellfire. Mature. The movie as a whole is known for being kinda tonally mixed, since there's a lot of goofiness going on, mostly having to do with the three gargoyles, one of whom is voiced by George Costanza, and then there's the really mature and heartfelt moments. Most people will tell you The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a great film, and in my opinion it is, but that's always been a big thing that's held the movie back for a lot of people. I really mean it that the song in particular is exceptionally mature. I mean, this is an old man singing about his lust for a much younger gypsy woman who performed a seductive dance for him at the Feast of Fools, who he then groped and sniffed her hair. Can you get a more fucked villain in a kid's movie than Judge Claude Frollo? It's so creepy but so dramatic, and that's what makes Hellfire stand out so much. Being that he's a man of faith, Frollo knows that these urges manifesting inside him are wrong, but that's also because of his hatred of gypsies and how the magic and silliness and whatnot that they perform is against God or whatever. On one hand, he can barely contain himself with all that he's feeling for Esmeralda, but it gets to a breaking point where he decides that if he can't have her,
Nobody can.
And while he spends the rest of the movie hunting down the Gypsies' Court of Miracles so he can kidnap their entire race for purging, this idea gets reintroduced when Esmeralda is tied up about to be lit on fire, where he says,
Choose me or the fire.
This guy is fucking mad, and that's why he's commonly considered to be the greatest Disney villain ever, or at least the most undoubtedly evil Disney villain ever. The performance here from the late Tony Jay is really something. You can feel the tension in his character's voice, like he's scared of what's happening to him. And much like what those red pill manosphere types will probably tell you, it's all her fault. In Frollo's mind, this is some kind of gypsy curse brought on by Satan or something, but it's really just the deadly sin known as lust.
This burning desire.
By no means is that uncommon for a man to feel for an attractive woman. When you take into account the age difference between him and Esmeralda, what? Are you kidding me? What the fuck is wrong with this guy? It's that sick, demented layer that really pushes Hellfire over the top. I feel weird for even speaking positively about this song. It's that much of an enigma. It's also visually stunning. I love the imagery when he's in the room with the red hooded figures and they fly into the fireplace, and then the silhouette of Esmeralda appears and he tries to grasp her. This is freaky and I love it. And the way he sings the word burn at the end is dramatically triumphant sounding, and up against those shadows no less. I totally get why so many people consider this the best villain song. It might not be my favorite personally, or even my favorite song from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but it sends so much shivers down the spine that you really can't have a Disney song list or villain song list without it. Number 11. Okay, I guess we're gonna get a little political here. I've gone on record in my Aged Poorly as Anti-Art video saying that I like Pocahontas more than a lot of other people. It might not be historically accurate by any means, but I always appreciated the theme of understanding it conveys. And the crux of that theme is pretty much brought out by seeing what happens when the extremes of two sides of an issue are at the forefront, which is what we get with my favorite song in the film, Savages. Look, you probably don't need me to spell this out for you, but Ratcliffe is the only real villain in this movie. He's the only one with evil intentions, while the rest of the Englishmen are basically just along for the ride following orders. And we see this pretty much every time he's on screen, especially in another one of the songs, Mine, Mine, Mine. While I find that song to be dumb but entertaining, the big reason I admire Savages so much is because it showcases that not only the Englishmen, but also the Native Americans are capable of showcasing bigotry, the obstinate or unreasonable attachment to a belief, opinion, or faction, in particular prejudice against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. How, you ask? In both of their verses, they're both saying that because the other side is different from them, then that means they're evil, they can't be trusted, and they're barely even human, which should sound abundantly familiar to all of you. And that's what leaves Pocahontas and John Smith, two people from different cultures that learn to understand each other, in the middle of it all. And as somebody that does identify as a moderate center-left libertarian, it's a feeling I know all too well. I should clarify that this isn't me saying the Native Americans are just as bad as the Englishmen. Get that stupid fucking dismissive ass straw man out of here and learn to actually pay attention to what's being said. There's no false equivalence fallacy being committed on my end. All I'm saying is that the song showcases the Native Americans showing the same kind of bigotry that the Englishmen are showing towards them. It's horseshoe theory in action. This idea becomes all the more piercing by the time Pocahontas arrives after finally figuring out what this path is that she's supposed to follow, as well as having some cool layering of her parts on top of the two sides marching out, just in time to save John Smith from execution. She essentially tells her father, Chief Powhatan, to look in the mirror, and that's what motivates not just her tribe, but also the Englishmen to let their guard down. Except for Ratcliffe. This is why I say he's the only real villain, because he remains unconvinced and still maintains his desire for war with the Native Americans, and he ends up shooting John Smith, which not only leads to Smith needing to return to England for treatment, but also Ratcliffe getting arrested for what I guess could be considered treason. For the longest time, I've loved what Savages represents. While it's true that Pocahontas is not historically accurate, no matter which way you look at it, and no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, there's no denying that the movie is very anti-bigot across all boards, and it makes that abundantly clear by this part of the movie. No matter how old you are, no matter your skin color, gender, sexual orientation, political affiliation, etc., it's something we can all learn from. It's almost like that's the reason I played a clip from the song in my Muse video. You can feel how you want about Pocahontas. It's totally fine if it's just not a movie you enjoy or a film you view as weak in the Disney filmography, but I hope that, much like most of the characters in the movie, you guys can understand where I'm coming from here. And maybe you can join me in giving a nod to the beauty I see in the message conveyed here. That's all I really ask. Number 10. Here's another curveball from a movie that doesn't get talked about a lot, Oliver and Company, a movie mostly based on the Charles Dickens novel Oliver Twist. I'd be lying if I said that this movie didn't feel the most of the time of all the Disney movies I've seen, but I always found Oliver and Company to be really fun. This movie came out in 1988, and it really shows. The cast features the likes of Cheech Marin,
Bette Midler,
Ruth Pointer of the Pointer Sisters, Dom DeLuise, and of course,
Robert Loggia.
Hell, even the opening song, Once Upon a Time in New York City, is performed by Huey Lewis. But all that is small beans compared to the reason I like this song so much, and the main reason I like coming back to this movie every once in a while. Billy friggin' Joel. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Billy Joel is one of my favorite artists outside of metal and punk, and he knocks it out of the park as Dodger. He was always known for being the everyman's artist, especially if you live in New York, and that makes his inclusion in this movie really special. Why Should I Worry doesn't sound too far off from the kind of work he was putting out in the 80s. It's really rockin', really fun, Joel's singing is really smooth, and he injects a lot of that attitude he was always known for, right down to his dialogue throughout the rest of the film. So let's talk about his character, Dodger. He's the leader of a gang of dogs ran by a lowly bum named Fagin, who's living by the docks down on his luck. He and the other dogs basically go out and nab cash and things Fagin can pawn for cash from unsuspecting people in the city so he can pay off his debts. And Oliver, an orphaned kitten who was passed up while other kittens got adopted, helped him get a hold of some hot dogs. And rather than give Oliver his compensation, he runs off telling him that's just the way shit goes in the city. And he enters into a song about how street smart he is and how he really knows his way around New York City. He's really wise and tough, yet really carefree, and that's how he always manages to avoid trouble. And it really shows with how seamlessly he ventures throughout the city, jumping on cars and such, while Oliver can barely keep up with him. And all the while, he acts like such a boss, especially by the end, when all the other dogs start following him and doing that catchy howl with him. That's the thing about Why Should I Worry? It is so fucking catchy. Like I said, it's the kind of song that would fit well on any of the albums Billy Joel put out in the 80s. It pops, it's groovy, and above all else, it's fun. My favorite part is when Dodger puts on the shades, thus becoming canine in shades, and hops on a piano that's being lifted. Just the kind of thing you'd expect Billy Joel himself to do. Every time I listen to this song, I always imagine how cool it would be to one day go to one of his Madison Square Garden shows with how undeniably New York this sequence of events is. I mean, I did go to college in New York and have made my way through the city a handful of times, so I think I have some credit. But yeah, this song jams. None of the other songs in the movie stand up to it. It's a song that readily comes to mind when you think of Oliver and Company. Even if you might think the movie is kind of cheesy and below the standards of a certain era of films that would immediately follow, you can't deny how much of a bop Why Should I Worry is. And Billy Joel's the man. That much we can agree on too, hopefully. Also, here's an image I made after hearing some guy 827 refer to someone as a shower dodger one time. It's one of the best insults I've ever heard. Number 9. Okay, so this is my favorite song from Hunchback of Notre Dame. You're probably asking right now,
Shades, you're already weird enough for putting Hellfire so low. Now you're putting this so much further ahead? Why?
for one reason and one reason only: the singing. A big theme in the movie is wanting to belong and not feel like you're less than human. These themes are represented by both Quasimodo and Esmeralda. In the latter's case, her people are being persecuted, outcasted so to speak, and she wonders why a loving God would allow this to happen. God Help the Outcast is a nice song that details these feelings, but Out There always felt so much bigger and grandiose. In the case of Quasimodo, he's a deformed man who basically lives in solitary confinement in the bell tower ringing all those bells. Frollo is his guardian, who took him in after killing his mother when he was a baby, tried to drown him in a well after seeing how fucking hideous he looked, but was told after getting caught to care for him as his own son or he'll go to hell. We wouldn't want that, would we? Apart from Frollo, the closest things Quasimodo has to friends are the gargoyles that are somehow both imaginary and real at the same time. I don't fucking know either. But they're all he has. He never got to experience life as it was meant to be experienced, because all his life, he was told society isn't ready to see something this ugly. But today, it's the Feast of Fools, something Quasi has always wanted to experience, and so he yearns just for one fleeting moment to go out there. While a situation like this would mostly call for a more depressing sounding soundscape, again, Out There is big. I really cannot get enough of this gorgeous singing, especially when the key changes as Quasimodo cascades down to the Seine. There's just so much passion in his voice, yet there's also a gentleness to it, because that's who Quasimodo is. And he just wants to show the world that there's more to him than just a big hump on his back and a weird, uneven facial structure that Frollo insists on being hidden from the public. I always have to smile at all the heart put into this song and be like, go for it, man, you deserve this. It's almost to the point I'm kind of mad at how great of a performance Tom Hulce puts on. Fun fact, Meatloaf was actually originally considered for the job as the voice for Quasimodo. Could you imagine how insane this song would have sounded with his vocals? Rest in peace to that theatrical, cinematic rock legend. I'm glad Chef served you that plate of meatloaf that inspired you to take it up as your stage name. Not to mention, Out There also serves as words of encouragement to introverts. Frollo isn't exactly incorrect that the world can be scary, especially in these times. But the big thing to remember is that life itself is basically a gamble. Progression comes from taking risks, and without taking risks, you're not truly living. Quasimodo sneaking out to the Feast of Fools after this song was a big risk for him, and the build-up felt throughout the song ultimately led him to just say, fuck it. All in all, this song is incredible. Hellfire might be the ultimate villain song among villain songs, but I just get so much joy from this performance that sets up Quasi's character arc. Number 8. I've always found Hercules to be the most criminally underrated movie in the Disney Renaissance. Not only is it really fun and has some funny and enjoyable characters, including my favorite Disney villain, Hades, but quality-wise, I've always seen it as a movie that goes so far above and beyond that doesn't really get recognized as much as I think it should. And much of that is because of how much of bangers all the songs are. And one of the two standouts from the movie would of course be I Won't Say I'm in Love. Meg, or Megara, is a really interesting character. Not only is she really sassy and brings her sex appeal further to the forefront than the likes of Jasmine and Esmeralda, but she goes through a really interesting arc and has a really unique dynamic with the other characters. See, she sold her soul to Hades to save the life of her ex-boyfriend, who, as it turns out, was cheating on her. So now she serves Hades as one of his minions, along with his two imps, Pain and Panic, who you might remember from their cameo in Best Songs of 2019. Hades essentially uses that feminine charm of Meg's to convince an assortment of monsters, such as the the centaur Nessus to join his uprising to overthrow Zeus and take over Mount Olympus. Ever since selling her soul, Meg was basically jaded towards men, so she initially sees Hercules as just another simp, and Hades picks up on that. So by promising her freedom, he gets her to seduce Hercules to prove that he does indeed have a weakness. I mean, come on, can you blame him? But after the nice time she had with someone who sees her for who she is and shows genuine compassion for her, she begins to second guess what she's doing. She realizes she doesn't want to hurt Hercules and that she just might be developing feelings for him. I Won't Say I'm in Love revolves around the internal struggle she's having with these feelings. She's had a history of getting hurt so many times in the past, so she isn't sure she should be accepting these newfound feelings, especially knowing the role she was playing to entrap him so Hades can use Herc's weakness against him. She's basically the Dua Lipa of Disney like that, but with an added twist, and that's what makes Meg such an interesting character. Along with all this, I couldn't ask for catchier instrumentation to go along with it. I've always had a soft spot for gospel instrumentation, and Hercules is chock full of that. Meg's singing, performed by Susan Egan, is really soulful, but much of that gospel feel is brought out by the muses that mostly act as the narration for the story, but here are acting as Meg's conscience, much like Sebastian did with Eric. Along with providing some great backing vocals, they're driving things forward, essentially telling Meg that she can only deny her feelings so much. And by the end of the song, Meg finally accepts that it's okay. These feelings are nice, and they're what motivate her to turn on Hades.
Read my lips. Forget it.
I've always loved this turning point in the film, where Meg makes it clear that she has no desire to hurt Hercules because he's the one man that would never hurt her.
He's a guy.
What more can I say about this gem of a song? Hercules is one of my personal favorite movies, and I have much more to say about it, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so let's move onward. Number 7. Kiss the Girl may be the more iconic scene in The Little Mermaid, but Poor Unfortunate Souls was always the song I really liked. It starts out creepy and unsettling, but sounds so menacing by the end. And it's kinda crazy because this is a major turning point in the film, and it almost feels relieving that things take a lighthearted turn after this song with Ariel's human escapades with Eric. So the setup for the song is King Triton destroying Ariel's human artifacts that she'd been secretly collecting, including a statue of Eric. And Ursula's 2 eel minions, Flotsam and Jetsam, essentially appeal to Ariel's emotions about what had just happened to convince her to visit the Sea Witch herself. Obviously, we know it's all part of Ursula's plan to eventually fuck things up so Ariel can turn into a polyp for her little garden, but Ariel doesn't know this. There's actually a lot about Ursula that she doesn't know about, which is why she isn't showing much skepticism about what's going on in the moment. Not to mention, emotions are still high on her end from her last encounter with her father, her feelings for Eric, and the desire she still has to experience life on dry land, and Ursula's aware of all of this. She plays it up like she's a reformed individual whom they weren't kidding when they called her, well, a witch, and she uses magic to help people achieve whatever goal they have. However, because this is a business, there has to be a catch. And that catch is that if someone can't pay whatever price there is, they turn into a polyp. In Ariel's case, that price is her voice. And this sets the stakes pretty damn high for Ariel, because like I said in the Kiss the Girl segment, her future as a human is all predicated on whether or not she can get Eric to kiss her. Not helping is the fact that she won't be able to use her voice, but instead rely on the power of
Body language.
It's actually kind of a lose-lose situation, because if everything works out with the kiss, she might get to stay human and be with Eric, but she'll never see her family again, who have no idea she's even gone. And if she doesn't get the kiss in 3 days, she'll not only turn back into a mermaid, but she'll also be added to the polyp garden. You really gotta hand it to Ursula with how meticulous of a plan this is. But the thing I've always loved about Poor Unfortunate Souls is the composition. Like I said, it's a bit slow to start out, but it builds up so excellently and mirroring the scene's tension in the process. Ursula's performance becomes bolder, eccentric, and menacing as the song progresses, and it's here where she really starts appealing to Ariel's attraction to Eric by mentioning how great he is and how easy it is to please a man simply by holding your tongue and using that female charm. All this buildup is simply overwhelming for Ariel, and you can tell she's scared of what all this could entail until she ultimately closes her eyes, caves in, and signs the contract. But before any transformation can happen, she must sing. Even without any of the instrumentation present, with nothing but Ariel's voice being sucked into Ursula's conch shell, you still feel on edge with the tension still being present. And as the transformation occurs and Sebastian and Flounder help Ariel reach the surface, we get, in my opinion, the most menacing evil laugh in Disney history. Poor Unfortunate Souls is so over the top. It provides such a crazy progression in the plot development. Like I said earlier, by the time Ariel reaches the surface, you kind of feel like you need a moment to catch your breath after all we just witnessed. Even writing this part of the script had me feeling a bit on edge. While I respect that so many people consider Hellfire to be a peak villain performance, I've always found Poor Unfortunate Souls to be so much more memorable as a song, and this isn't even the final villain song on this list. Poor Unfortunate Souls is simply crazy, and that's why it's always going to be my favorite song in The Little Mermaid. Number 6. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting to the excellent stuff. With the exception of one other song on this list, I can't think of a better way to introduce a character. After Aladdin basically tricked the genie into getting him out of the Cave of Wonders without using up one of his 3 wishes, smart, he makes his first wish to become a prince, Prince Ali Ababwa.
The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo. The boo-boo.
He had met a girl in the marketplace that turned out to be none other than Princess Jasmine herself, and he surmises that the only way he can be with her is if he is a prince. Where from? Who knows? Who cares? He's a prince, baby. And with this epic little march, his plan to win the princess's heart jumps into action because that's just the way the courtship process goes in royalty. Jasmine, I love you, but don't act like you aren't just a little impressed at this huge display. There's balloons, dancers, acrobats, and all sorts of animals, including a giant elephant that Aladdin's monkey Abu was turned into. Even Iago can't help but dance a little, much to the chagrin of Jafar, who sees this Prince Ali fellow as an obstacle he needs to deal with if he wants to become sultan. Ain't that right, mister?
Pussycat.
Prince Ali is such a party. It starts out as a simple 4/4 march, but when the chorus hits, it's such an exciting moment. It's so catchy and earwormy, and the melody is so creative with its scalular descension over the chords. And all the while, the genie takes up various forms to talk about how cool this prince is and how this kingdom would be lucky to have him should the princess accept his proposal. I doubt any of the other princes that came to ask for Jasmine's hand measure up to how much of a baller he presents himself as. So much is going on in this parade, it's kind of overwhelming, but in the best way. Just like in Be Our Guest, there's also a big Broadway slowdown and build-up. I kinda wish it was more gradual, but the cadence it leads to and the bang it ends on are so sensational. I'm not sure what else to say. This is without a doubt one of the best songs in Aladdin and one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's huge, it's epic, it's Prince Ali.
Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince
of a kingdom called Agrabah.
It's funny because Will Smith is in the live-action movie. I'm actually going to shake things up a little for this video. Since I'm sure my top 5 shouldn't be too hard to figure out, I'm actually going to go through my honorable mentions right here. Like I said in the intro, there was a good bit that I had to cut from the main list, so like Aladdin evading the guards after stealing a loaf of bread, I'll try to be quick with these. Starting with...
a guy like you.
Nah, that song's a joke. Since I did put it as my number 1 in Best Songs of 2014, I suppose I'll give a little nod to Let It Go from Frozen. These days I tend to find Frozen to be flawed but good. There are only maybe a couple other songs from Frozen I like, and this one's very clearly the best. I mean, hey, like I said in Best Songs of 2014, it basically defined that part of the last decade, and it's for sure the most massive hit to come from a Disney movie in ages. Since I mentioned shameless at the beginning of the video, I'll include Shiny from Moana in the honorable mentions as well. It's definitely the most entertaining song in the movie, and Tamatoa is indeed a very entertaining and charismatic character that deserved way more screen time than he got. Not to mention, the first time I watched Moana in 2020, when I got to this part, I said out loud, "Ah, there it is! There it is! Yes, sir!" Along with the likes of Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, Zootopia, and even Frozen, Moana is a movie that comes readily to mind when I think of how Disney can still deliver in the current era of animation, where 3D is the new norm for theatrical releases. It's just that, leaving aside how Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia aren't musical films, the songs haven't resonated with me to the extent of the songs on the main list. While I still have Shafe on the mind, and since I did feature the soundtrack version of the song by Pabo Bryson and Regina Bell with that cool Michael Landau guitar solo in my Power Ballads video, I guess I'll address the elephant in the room by saying no, A Whole New World is not the other Aladdin song on my list, despite how many would make the argument that it's objectively the best Disney song. Don't get me wrong, it's great. It's the key moment in the film that leaves a lasting impact on the character arcs of both Aladdin and Jasmine, where Jasmine finally gets the chance to see the world beyond the palace walls after so many years of not being allowed to, and Aladdin gets the opportunity to show how there's more to him than what Jasmine had initially thought based on her previous impression of him. He may be lying about his identity, but he's simply being himself, as cliched as that probably sounds. Honestly, the more I think about about it, and the more I rewatch that video of Shafes, the more I see this moment as something us guys can all learn from if you want to make a girl fall in love with you. I'm not denying for a second this song's excellence, it's just never been my favorite from Aladdin. I can see a similar argument being made for Beauty and the Beast, or Tale as Old as Time. That scene is magnificent too, enough to actually make me honest to God tear up, seeing the love Belle and the Beast feel for each other really become apparent with all the graceful movement and looks of adoration in both their eyes. But again, it's just never been my favorite from Beauty and the Beast. I like the scene more than I like the song, I guess. I'll also give a little mention to the mob song with how much it elevates Gaston to legitimately evil as he leads the town to the castle to... It's definitely more menacing than his titular song, but that titular song is just so much more memorable and a hell of a lot more quotable and even memeable.
I'm especially good at ejaculating.
Also, I love how adorable LeFou looks carrying that torch. A song from Princess and the Frog I was kind of bummed to have to cut was Almost There. This is another fun swinger where Tiana sings about her aspirations to open her restaurant now that she's just about in the clear to make the payment for the facility. Her singing is soulful, and while I wouldn't say it's as fun as in When We're Human, I enjoy the calm 20s style swing with the nice brushwork from the drums and the Benny Goodman style clarinet. I also really like the animation style as Tiana envisions everything being like in her drawing, especially with it being paired with lyrics about working hard to achieve your goals. Another song from Princess and the Frog that, once again, has the New Orleans jazz sound to a T is Ma Belle Evangeline. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of Ray, as his voice can get a tad annoying, and the crush he has on the star that he felt the need to name Evangeline kinda weirds me out, but this is a solid slow jazz ballad. I love the chord choices, especially with the chromatic dissension. The trumpet solo is very moving, and I like the visuals during Tiana and Naveen's dance, where you can tell their relationship is blossoming greatly from being initially annoyed at each other. Go the Distance from Hercules is another pretty strong ballad, and it's one of a very small number of Disney songs that I can actually belt out in my upper register and satisfy my inner theater kid. I really enjoy the singing as Hercules begins his journey of self-discovery and learning who he really is. With each different part of the song, it gets more powerful and really sets you up for how much more grandiose things get in the movie. Also, am I the only one who thinks Michael Bolton is a legitimately good artist? Yes, even when he jacked that Lonely Island song. Finally, a villain song, I guess we can call it that deserves a little mention for how legitimately creepy it sounds is the Siamese cat song from Lady and the Tramp. Those cats' voices creep me the fuck out as a kid, and they are still very much unsettling as an adult. Fuck the both of you for getting poor Lady in trouble. Her situation's already crappy enough with getting neglected in favor of that new baby. Sheesh. Alright, now we get to the big boys. Wait, that's not a Disney reference. Number 5. Let's get down to business to discuss this song. Now, I'm not going to do a whole-ass parody of the song for this segment. Who do you think I am, Doug Walker? Much like Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan was another movie that I was a bit late to really get into. I remember watching it as a kid when it was new, but I didn't have the best memory of it as the years went on. When I decided to revisit it many years later, although it isn't exactly one of my favorites in the Disney Renaissance, it was so much better than I remembered. And much of that impression was because of this song, I'll Make a Man Out of You. Just like Why Should I Worry, it blows the rest of the songs in the movie out the water. It goes so much more above and beyond, it's kind of insane. This is the training montage of Captain Li Shang whipping the new army recruits, including Mulan disguised Shakespeare style as the soldier Ping, into shape to defeat the Huns. He sets the bar really high, but from what I understand about the military, it kinda has to be. When you're going into battle, you need to be equipped, or else you not only look bad, but everyone else does as well. It's all for one and one for all. So seeing Mulan and the others spectacularly fail throughout this montage is really cringy and embarrassing, but watching Mulan improve and excel past her peers is really inspiring. What I especially love about this song is that her progress mirrors the song's progression. The key change to F minor midway through gives me so much life, especially with the slow drum beat keeping things going. It almost sounds like a big rock ballad by this point, and I love how huge the song sounds. Not to mention, Donny Osmond really brings his A game with these vocals. The high notes he hits sound so grandiose against the instrumentation. All of this really factors into why the song is as memorable as it is. The other songs in Mulan aren't bad, but it really doesn't get better than this. Eventually, Mulan, who by the way is not a princess on account of she's neither born into royalty nor marries into royalty, is able to become as swift as a coursing river, with all the force of a raging typhoon, with all the strength of a raging fire, and mysterious as the dark side of the moon. I wonder if they were listening to Pink Floyd when they wrote that line. Her climbing the pole, impressing everyone, and getting Shang to give her a proud look is a triumphant moment for her. There's a reason why everyone points to Mulan as the prototypical strong female character, and that's because she earns it. She goes through her own struggles with trying to make something of herself, and her being a woman doesn't hold her back from becoming a great fighter, let alone making the decision to cut her hair and run away to join the army just so she can save her aging father from potentially dying out there. And outside of when she gets found out to be a woman, her gender isn't really made a huge spectacle out of like I hear it was in the live-action remake. No, I have absolutely no interest in watching it. And she still manages to single-handedly defeat the Hun leader Shan Yu and become a hero, despite all that had happened that got her expelled from the army. I know it sounds like I just went on a tangent about the quality of Mulan as a character, but much of that character arc is thanks to the power of I'll Make a Man Out of You. Hell yes, I'm LGBT. This song is such a banger and really pushes things over the top, and you can probably tell by this point in the video that that's a bit of a theme with these songs. Number 4. Alright, this is it.
This is the big one.
Aladdin and Hercules both come extremely close to being my favorite Disney movie, but no matter how much I think about it, there's just no topping The Lion King. My favorite animated movies in general are the Toy Story trilogy. 4 is okay, but I don't think anybody was really asking for it. But with 2D animation, I'm willing to go on a limb and say The Lion King is the best of them all. I've loved this movie basically my whole life. Even my parents could tell you I had quite the attachment to this movie as a kid, even if I was too young to really understand much of the dialogue. But there are many reasons this movie has held up as much as it has almost 30 years later. The animation is breathtaking, the characters are all enjoyable and memorable, its theme of identity permeates time no matter your age, and it has some amazing songs. Keep in mind, this is the first thing we see and hear in this movie. What does that tell you? Circle of Life really sets you up for something spectacular with how huge the song is. It may be the hugest sounding song on this list, and since the song is celebrating the birth of the next king of the Pride Lands, I don't think you can expect anything less. The lyrics center around the concept of life, creation, and entering the world in a way that kind of makes my head spin. But that's the appetizer for such a sensational drum fill into the chorus. I cannot get enough of this chord progression and how the vocals sound on top of them. This part in particular always moves me. That G7 to C minor to A flat minor, I think that next chord is, it's like, wow. I'm just now realizing this isn't exactly a character from the movie singing, but with how vital the song is to the movie as a whole, it might as well be. I especially love the way the chorus comes back in after Rafiki performs his ritual on baby Simba, the way the drums explode as he lifts him into the sky as all the animals rejoice. Elton John, Tim Rice, and Hans Zimmer really outdid themselves having this music fit such an amazing moment. And as if things couldn't get crazier, there's a fucking key change in the middle of this chorus from B flat to D flat, an irregular change going up a minor third that brings the song to an even greater height. That cool chord change from earlier also sounds so much more excellent in this key. This entire scene is so overwhelmingly exciting that I honestly tear up during the choruses. Again, this is the beginning of the movie. I shouldn't be doing this early into it. Fuck! But that really speaks volumes as to the power of Circle of Life. It does an exceptional job setting you up for one of the most, if not the most, epic, adventurous, borderline surreal animated experiences of your life. I don't even think I'm doing this song justice because I'm always at such a loss whenever I listen to it or watch The Lion King for the upteenth time. It's such a holy shit moment and one everyone should experience. And yet... Number 3. You're probably thinking right now,
hold on, Shades, what makes you think you could put any other song from The Lion King above Circle of Life after all you just got done saying?
This is another case like I was saying with Little Mermaid, where Circle of Life is for sure the more iconic scene in the movie, whereas Be Prepared is the song I always liked better personally. Scar might not be my favorite Disney villain, he'd actually probably be number 2 after Hades, but he does have my favorite villain song. Yes, Friends on the Other Side is visually stunning. Gaston is really entertaining. Hellfire is really dramatic with how it showcases the character's demons and motivation. Savages showcases a theme, or rather a hard truth, that stands the test of time, and Poor Unfortunate Souls has exquisite compositional elements. But to me, Be Prepared is the full package. It takes all those elements of the previously mentioned villain songs, except for maybe Savages, and shakes it up to create the most epic villain song of them all. Scar is an example of a tragic villain. He lives in the shadow of his brother Mufasa, who had just given birth to the king that's next in line for the role after he passes. This of course leads him to resent Simba.
When I'm king, what'll that make you?
A monkey's uncle.
So he essentially lives his life as an outcast from the kingdom, with the only things close to friends he has being the mutually outcasted hyenas, but things are about to change. Be Prepared revolves around Scar concocting a plot with the hyenas to overthrow Mufasa and get rid of Simba in the process.
No king, la 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 la.
Yes again, simpletons.
I will be king. Stick with me, and you'll never go hungry again.
I've always loved the energy and tone of this song. It's dark, it's menacing, and much like in Circle of Life, the drums are massive. And it also has a similar usage of secondary dominants, which give the song an extra layer of tension. Jeremy Irons' delivery is so buttery over the pulsating instrumentation. Though to give credit where it's due, Jim Cummings, a regular with voice acting for background characters in Disney films, and who voiced the hyena Ed here, stepped in to finish the job after Irons' voice gave out. The fact that Cummings could match the tone and energy to the point where the average person wouldn't be able to tell that someone else was singing really speaks volumes about his talents as a voice actor. The coloring here is also awesome. From the neon green in the beginning to the dark yellows when the hyenas do their Nazi-like march, and of course the dark red, they mirror the tone of the song as it gets progressively heavier. With how sinister the song gets, it's enough to instill some chills, and the background vocals do a stellar job adding to that effect. Again, one of the best things about The Lion King is how hard Elton John, Tim Rice, and Hans Zimmer go with the songwriting, production, and composition, not just with songs like this, but the entire score. It's not a wonder that all three of them were brought on board for The Road to El Dorado, one of DreamWorks' attempts at doing Disney later on. By the way, that's not a dig at Road to El Dorado. It's one of my favorite DreamWorks movies, and if it were a Disney movie, It's Tough to Be a God would definitely be on this list. With Be Prepared, the creative animation choices combined with the song's big sound create an overall bonkers moment in the film. This is the villain song that goes far above and beyond what even Poor Unfortunate Souls had accomplished with its tone. It almost feels surreal watching the song unfold before your eyes. Like I said in the last villain song segment, and yes, I feel the need to repeat this because I imagine me putting the song as low as I did in this video probably pissed a lot of people off. I totally get why so many people consider Hellfire the peak villain song, but for me, it doesn't get any better than this. To Be Prepared, I say, long live this villain song. Number 2.
Did I mention I really like Hercules?
Yes, yes, yes! This is the bombshell song from Hercules that jams insanely hard. 0 to fucking hero. This is where the gospel performance is really at its high point, and it is truly sensational. All the songs in Hercules are bangers, but this one's a banger's banger. It's the song I always think of when I think of how great they all are, and honestly, it's the first thing that enters my mind when I think of Hercules in general. The premise of Hercules is how Hades sends Pain and Panic to kidnap baby Herc from his parents, Zeus, aka the god that fucks everything with a pulse, and his wife Hera, and give the baby a potion that will change him into a mortal man. That way, he won't be a threat to Hades by the time of his big uprising. However, since he didn't drink the entire potion, oops, he still has literal godlike strength that he can't seem to control as he gets older. When he finds out he's actually the son of Zeus, I probably should have said a son, but just roll with it. He's told that the only way he can be welcomed back to Olympus is if he can become a true hero. So he sets out to train with Philoctetes, or Phil, the go-to hero maker. At this point in the movie, Hercules has just made his fighting debut against a monster Hades set out to destroy him, known of course as the Hydra. Initially, when Herc arrived in the rundown city of Thebes, he didn't make the greatest impression on the people there, but throughout the fight with the Hydra, as its heads keep regenerating after he slices their necks off,
Will you forget the head slicing thing?
you can see in the crowd's reaction how tense this battle is getting. After he comes out alive after the Hydra get crushed to death by falling rocks, he gets an insane applause from the crowd, and Meg gives a little clap as well, and he finally has the recognition of being a pro. As I said back in the Won't Say I'm in Love segment, the muses mostly act as the soulful narration throughout the movie, and 0 to Hero is no exception. The song basically tells the TLDR of Hercules' rise to stardom. We not only see him soaking up all the riches, getting all these endorsements and products, and melting the hearts of many a young lady, but we see him continue to fight more monsters, keeping his reputation intact, and of course pissing Hades off from the sidelines. All this is packaged with so much energy from this song, it's hard to not get excited. The stylistic choices to have the songs in the movie gospel-tinged is really clever, given that this movie revolves around gods and whatnot. The Nostalgia Critic famously compared the movie's vibe and setting to that of Vegas, and the thing I always found clever about that is how these two stylistic choices correlate to how Hercules is being built up as a Hollywood celebrity rather than a hero per se, which becomes a conflict with his character as well as the crux of the movie's core themes. And no song personifies all of this this, like 0 to Hero. It serves as the midway point in the film that the rest of its themes hinge on, and that gives me all the more reason to marvel at the song's existence. I can't sing the song's praise enough. It's one of the best Disney songs ever. It plays a crucial part in why I love this movie as much as I do, but there's one song that takes the energy from 0 to Hero and comes out with something even greater. This would, of course, be As I alluded to throughout this video, I've seen many different cases being made for certain other songs I mentioned being the best Disney song, and while it's totally fine to have those opinions, Friend Like Me from Aladdin has always stood out as the de facto crowning jewel for me. Even if it might not be your favorite Disney song, you'd have to be an out-of-touch cretin to not acknowledge it as being one of the all-time best. Prior to The Lion King stealing the throne, no pun intended, for 2D excellence that it has yet to relinquish, I've always seen Aladdin as the movie that really broke ground for how big animation can be. Basically, Aladdin walked so Lion King could run, and there was never anything like it prior to its release in 1992. There are a lot of great scenes in Aladdin, but no other scene or song epitomizes the film's greatness like Friend Like Me. I'm sure we all know the main premise of Aladdin. I won't repeat too much of what I said in the Prince Ali segment. After getting charged with kidnapping the princess, this old man, who's actually Jafar in disguise, makes a deal with Aladdin that if he can retrieve this lamp thing from the badass Cave of Wonders, he'll make it worth his while. He ends up getting trapped in the cave with not just a magic carpet, but also that lamp that Abu managed to snag from Jafar right as the cave was about to collapse. Aladdin decides to rub it, and out comes the bar none best character in the movie, the Genie! And the introduction he makes is nothing short of spectacular. He goes all out with demonstrating his capabilities and really driving the point home that you've never had a friend like him. Fuck if I ever did. As if 0 to Hero didn't jam hard, Friend Like Me goes even harder. That main horn melody is so infectious, and the underlying rhythm section gives the song a really energetic pulse. I love how fast-paced the various sequences zip and zag. I love the blue and pink aesthetic of the scenery, and I especially love all the different forms the genie takes and the different voices he puts on as he shows his new master the gift he's gotten himself into. The animation really lends itself well to the madness that's going on, and it's such a blast to see. Every time I decide to watch Aladdin, this is what I always get exceptionally excited for. But the cherry on top is, of course, the impeccable performance by the late Robin Williams. He was always known for his fast-paced delivery and seemingly sudden shifts, and with how often that kind of stuff goes on throughout the movie, you'd think this role was made for him. That's always been one of my favorite things about the genie. Yeah, he's really funny and quick-witted, in addition to being kind of the emotional core of the movie, but much of that is due to how Williams was able to really give this character life. It's not so much that the genie is Robin Williams, but Robin Williams is the genie. I've enjoyed him in films like Mrs. Doubtfire, Good Will Hunting, Dead Poets Society, Good Morning Vietnam, Flubber, Patch Adams, and even Jumanji, but the genie will always and forever be my favorite performance of his. I'm not sure what the extent of his musical training is, but it doesn't matter because he sounds like he's having the time of his life with this character. I've always loved how his delivery sounded more and more zany as the song pushes forward, all culminating in that big finale note he hits at the end before giving a little insane sounding laugh. It's worth noting that I have seen the live-action Aladdin from 2019, and I didn't think it was as bad as it could have been. Will Smith that's hot. Definitely tried his best to at least match Robin Williams' energy as the genie, and there were some changes that I thought were interesting, such as the new song for Jasmine and the whole deal about a rival kingdom that Jafar wants to invade. But no matter how much Disney wants to cash in on our nostalgia, other than Lion King, nothing could ever top the brilliance that is the original 1992 Aladdin, featuring, in my opinion, the best and most fun song ever to come from a Disney movie. Rest in peace, Robin Williams. And that wraps up this gargantuan list of great songs from some great films. No matter what I think of Disney as a company, nothing can take away from the joy I get from these songs and the movies they came from. Since I'm sure you guys have your own lists featuring songs I neglected to include, like the uncultured dumbass that I totally am, feel free to share them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the nostalgia trip. Take care and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time.
Made you look.